All right. So today's the first session of your business analysis training. We'll be discussing these topics. We'll get the introduction to business analysis. We'll understand business composition and architecture. We'll understand the roles and responsibilities of a business analyst. We'll understand why a business analyst is needed in a project. We'll briefly discuss the project team, and we will understand the importance of a business analyst in the project team. So this is the business analysis definition. I picked this definition from Wiki, and I picked another one from BABOK. BABOK is a business analyst book of knowledge, and Wiki is wikipedia.org. So these definitions are, I mean, I would say, these are not all encompassing in the sense that they kind of convey really much more, or sometimes and in certain context a little less than what is needed. But still, just for the sake of completion, I will go over the business analysis definition. Business analysis is the set of tasks and techniques used to work as a liaison among stakeholders in order to understand the structure, policies, and operations of an organization and recommend solutions that enable organizations to achieve its goals. So that's what business analysis is about. It's a set of tasks and techniques used to work as a liaison. So so there are multiple stakeholders in any project, and you are kind of the person sitting in the middle. That is, you work as a liaison, and then you do certain things so that all the stakeholders can work in a well coordinated fashion. So that is kind of the thing. That is kind of the task. That is what the business analysis is all about. Now that's this definition. In about a couple of slides, you'll understand how I want you to understand the business analysis. Wiki says business analysis is a research discipline of identifying business needs and determining solutions to business problems. Solutions often include a systems development component, but may also consist of process improvement, organizational change, or strategic planning and policy development. So, too broad a definition. Why I call it broad is because of what I'm going to talk about next. So there are two types of business analysts. One is non-IT business analyst, and the second one is IT business analyst. So when we say that I'm taking a BA training or business analysis, or we are targeting business analyst positions, we're going to target business analysis positions for you. So we are essentially talking about the second one, IT business analyst. We are not talking about non-IT business analyst. So non-IT business analyst so whenever someone hears this word business analyst, what strikes you is a role which probably kind of analyzes the business. So kind of looks at the business, understands it, what the business is, and then analyze it, right? It looks like something. It looks to be something like that. So for example, if I say, I'm working as a business analyst for Amazon.com, it looks like I will tell them what to do. Like I will analyze their business and do something magical to turn the things around. Now that's not true. That's definitely not true. Those people are called as management consultants. That's not us. So there are many non-IT style business analysts who actually do some kind of business, turn the business around kind of thing. And that's not exactly what we will get. That's exactly what we will not get the training for here today. So IT business analyst is what we are going to be talking about. It is essentially an IT role. When a software project is conceived, that's when they need a business analyst to act as a liaison between SMEs and developers. Remember, this is the most important context. He acts as a liaison between SMEs and developers. So developers need to know what to code. and SMEs are the people appointed by the sales or service representatives who are going to use the system, roughly called as business users. So business users appoint an SME to give the requirements of for the system to BA so that he can tell the developers what to code. SMEs can tell the developers directly. I do understand that part, but that's not how they do here. They will always work in a methodical fashion. So BAs are the people who are supposed to understand the business language, that is the language of the SMEs. They are typically not just an expert of the business language, but they also understand the systems. Apart from these two things, they are kind of pseudo PMs who have implemented projects and who are an expert of of identifying what is the best way to help the business in whatever situation it is. So this whole thing to me is BA just acts as a liaison between SMEs and developers. He does many other things. He helps the tester understand the testing component, like what to test. So BA has gathered the requirements. He understands what needs to be tested. Application administrator, he tells the application administrator what all needs to be set up for a functionality to work. He does help the PM in day-to-day work, especially in level of effort analysis as far as SDLC is concerned. He helps in level of effort analysis as far as project planning is concerned. So, but BA at the end of the day, from a definition standpoint, his primary role is to act as a liaison between SMEs and developers. So these are called as IT business analyst or simply business analyst or analyst. So when you're looking for a position for you, okay, remember this very important context of yours. Okay. Right here, when you're doing submissions, you need to make sure you only target those positions which are about IT business analysis. The title may not convey that message. Okay. Title may not convey that message. Okay. It might say business analyst, and they might be actually looking for a non-IT business analyst, and you should not apply to those. It'll be a total waste of your time. When they need a person who knows the business, then they need a person who knows the business. They won't work with IT people. And when they need an IT business analyst, they will not work with the person who knows only business. They need a guy like you who knows business as well as systems. An IT business analyst is essentially part of IT team. Okay, he's essentially part of IT team right here. It is part of the IT team. So IT business analyst does not do any business operations duty. This is a very interesting point. Many of my students, after doing the entire class, many of the students in the past, they would have taken some other classes before, right? In those classes, they might have gone through the entire training and they would not understand that the business analyst does not enter data in the system. That is entered by the users who use the system. Business analyst and IT business analyst just gathers the requirement for the system and gives it to the developer. It is really that simple. There are two kinds of projects: non-IT projects and IT projects. So there are many other kinds. All right. So non-IT projects are, let's say, a company wants to restructure their entire organization. So they will conceive that, all right, we need to kind of, let's say they want to open a new store. So they'll be like, they have to sign the lease for the store. They have to make sure everything is stocked. They have to hire the right resources. All these are non-IT components of the whole opening the store part. The IT part is installing the right software on the machines, in making sure the POS are working, point of sale system. So if, let's say, Walmart is starting a new store, then they need to have POS working. Setting up the inventory is essentially non-IT, but inventory system is in place so that the person who's managing the inventory behind the scenes, and there's a warehouse, right? If you notice, in a Walmart there's a warehouse in the back, so that's where they manage the inventory, and that person there, he has to have the access to the inventory system. So installing and making sure it is available there is an IT project, but the hiring that person is non-IT project. So whenever a new, we can call it a big project or a program, is conceived, it consists of non-IT projects and IT projects. You will not be working in non-IT projects. IT projects are going to be your kind of focus area in this course as well as in your job. Okay. For example, creating a website, application to file taxes, develop the software for an ATM machine. I'm going to talk about many other. So these are some of the projects. These are some of the IT projects. E-commerce website. Amazon.com wants an e-commerce website. That's an e-commerce website. Like they want to do some enhancement to it. Then that will be an IT project. iPhone wants to upgrade their iPhone OS, not the hardware part, but the software part. Those are called as firmwares. That is also an IT project. These transactional systems are the most important systems. Let's say there is a company which wants to have a sales system. That's essentially a transactional system. Let's say some company, insurance company, wants to have a claims management system. That's a transactional system. Some company wants to increase their presence in the wireless market, in the phone market, and they want to have an app, iPhone or iPad app or Android app. Those are different kind of projects, but those are IT projects. So you might find yourself working on those. Some companies like Facebook, their product, the thing that they have, and Yahoo, their websites themselves are an IT system. So if you're working in Facebook and you're working on the website of theirs, then that's an engineering. I'm calling those as engineering systems, and those are IT projects too. Then there is a then let's say there are energy companies. So those have, very recently I saw a project, and they needed a business analyst for meters, managing the meters. Now you will not be doing the meter management actually. You will be part of the team which develops the software for the meters. Then there are MIS projects, management information system projects. Then there are data warehouse projects. Then there are projects related to SOA library maintenance. Then there are projects related to e-commerce maintenance. Okay. So remember this very important context. When you're working on a project, you pretty much know, let's say when you get the project, you will pretty much know that these are some of the topics that you need to kind of have an understanding of, and you should be able to handle it. So let's say you get a project in meter management system. So you don't need to understand every single kind of system as far as training program is concerned. You need to just understand, the business analysis and develop some kind of a general understanding. And at the end of the day, when you get the job, you will be able to develop these things really well. And really, when you get the work assigned, it will be a small little thing which you have to do in depth every day. And your project mates, your friends, and Google will be able to help you in getting the work done. But just to let you know, yes, there are some projects out there. All right. So just for an exercise, just outline few projects, maybe 5 to 10 projects for a certain program that I'm going to talk about. So Dell feels, well, Comcast feels that people who buy laptops are going to buy internet, right? They would need internet, they would need mouse, they would need USB. So Dell, whenever it sells laptops, it sells mouse, it kind of gives an option to buy mouse and everything, but Dell doesn't give any option to sell internet, if you notice. So Comcast, some person in Comcast comes out with an idea that they need to they can target those people who recently bought a laptop, whether a Dell laptop or an HP laptop and Toshiba laptop. They might be interested in buying the internet also for their home. Yeah, of course, it could be the third or second laptop. So that's exactly the problem in this program. So they kind of do all this strategic analysis. So they do all this strategic analysis, they identify the business strategy, they kind of find out. So now at a high level, they conceive that they will buy these lists of people who have bought laptop from Dell, from HP, and they'll buy the same list from Toshiba, Acer, Compaq, and whatnot, and then cold call them and identify and ask them questions on the basis of which they can identify whether the person would need the internet or not. You all might have received those calls. I have. Now, from Comcast standpoint, which is an internet provider, of course, think and tell me what all they need to do in order to achieve this. And remember, each and everything that they would do would pretty much become a project. They need to purchase a list from Dell, HP, Compaq. Well, there will be a lot of strategic analysis before that. I'm not getting into that. To purchase the list, they need a person who will go and purchase, who would negotiate the price, get the physical delivery, and it won't happen in a day. It will happen in months and months. That person, that particular piece is a non-IT project. So they will conceive it as a project. And okay, we'll do this, then we'll do this, then the person will do this, then he will try this. If this thing happens, then he will tell the CEO that this, I'm not able to purchase it. If there's a slippage in the timelines, if he's not able to, let's say they want to plan, they want to do the cold calling in August 2014, then they need to have the list ready by a certain time, maybe by July 1st, 2014. And then they need to hire people to cold call. Those people which will get hired need to be trained on what they should talk and what they should not talk. The hiring process should start, let's say, in February 2014. The person who needs to do that hiring should be chosen in November 2013. Otherwise, he won't be able to do that. And he needs to understand company's policies and what the company is trying to achieve. Remember, no IT yet. It's all non-IT projects. Then at that point of time, they realize that the distribution of the leads among cold callers can be a problem. So then they talk to a business analyst, an IT business analyst, to determine what all options do they have in terms of softwares with which they can get the work done sooner, faster when they do hire the cold callers. So that particular process might just start in November 2013 because it will take time. It takes time to implement a software. It won't happen overnight either. So then they will conceive IT projects. Okay, we need a system for cold callers to log their leads, to look at the lead and call them. We need a calling system. So these are some of the IT projects now. The calling system again is probably non-IT. Depends if it's a software VoIP kind of calling, then it is an IT project. So you, if they do conceive an IT project, then you might be working on that IT project as a business analyst and talking to various business users and identifying the requirements for the system. So this particular example demonstrates when a big program is conceived in a company here, they don't just get into action. They plan, and as part of plan, they conceive multiple projects. And when they do conceive projects, they could be of multiple kinds. They could be of IT, they could be non-IT, and within non-IT, they could be of different kinds. And within IT, they also could be of different kinds. They might realize that the reporting may not work, and then they might conceive some changes in data warehouse. Data warehouse systems. For example, if they feel that the leads should be able to come online and enter some code, offer code given by the cold callers, then they might conceive some changes in the e-commerce website of theirs. So multiple things are involved here. And for the same thing, a number of IT projects would also be conceived. For example, they might have to set up databases. They might have to set up security. They might have to set up networks. They might have to upgrade the network, do something about the network. They might have to, let's say, where will the cold callers sit? So they have to lease an office for the cold callers. So that office leasing is a non-IT project, but then network has to work in that office. So that would make it an IT project. So that would be an IT project. So as part of the big program, many projects would be conceived, and many of those would be IT and non-IT, and you would be working on IT projects. So what is a project management office? A PMO is a group or department within a business, agency, or enterprise that defines and maintains standards for project management within the organization. The primary goal of a PMO is to achieve benefits from standardizing and following project management policies, processes, and methods. Over time, a PMO generally will become the source for guidance, documentation, and metrics related to the practices involved in managing and implementing projects within the organization. So, what happens is, any such thing like the program that I explained needs they will create a PMO, a program management office, and that's a group of people from the business, and they will get some IT people involved, not the business analyst at this point. I'm talking about like director of IT or CIOs might be involved, and they would start to conceive various changes in the systems and in the processes and in the business. And when they do conceive those, they will come out with ways to control what's going on as far as the projects are concerned, and they also would come out with general policies, and they will also come out with templates, documentation standards, that they would want to follow to be able to accomplish the goal. Though they might conceive standard templates for all the projects, so basically that is all where the policies will be kind of decided. Now, from your job standpoint, you really don't need to worry about it. You will be, when you go in the project, you will be getting the template. You will never be developing a template. If you do have to develop a template, 1 out of 100 projects would require you to do this work. I don't expect you guys to work in project management office. I'm talking about PMO just from completion standpoint. I really don't think you need to know too much about PMO, what PMO does. When you go in there, if you know there is something called as PMO, what they're doing, what they're not doing, you would not even be worried about. You just need to worry about your project manager. You'll be dealing with this person a lot. But still, I want to make sure you know what PMO does. When you go in, you may not, let's say it's a 4-year program, you may not be going in at the start of the first year. You might be going in in the middle of the 3rd year, or in the 2nd year, or somewhere in the middle of the 4th year, or might be even after 4th year just for maintenance purpose. Okay, so remember, at that point, all these templates, policies, procedures, processes would be set in place, and you would not need to know much about these things. You would just need to do your regular business analysis duty, that is, gather the requirements from the SME and give it to the developer. Okay, your project manager may not even take you to PMO meetings. So PMO just might remain a mystery to you. Like, those people would be sitting, meeting weekly or monthly once, or be bi-weekly, depending upon how much time do they need to spend together and deciding on certain agenda. You may not be part of it. So I highly doubt that you need to really worry about PMO processes. PMO processes are all around budgeting, about conceiving the project, coming out with guidelines, coming out with policies, coming out with templates, and identifying, what are the better ways of doing the things. Let's say they make some mistakes in the first year, they'll make sure they don't make the same mistakes in the second release of the system or in the second year, so on and so forth. So you would not need to really worry about that. On a day-to-day basis, you might just shake hands with one of the PMO people once in a blue moon, once in a week, or once in 2 weeks. That's about it. They won't ask you anything. Project manager is your ultimate boss, and he's the one who will assign you the work. He's the one who will measure what you're doing, who will look at what you're doing, who will supervise you. You really don't need to worry about PMO too much, and you would not be doing any PMO work for the next 10 years. These things come really late in life. A typical project manager aspires to become a project part of program management office, and a typical BA aspires to become a PM, maybe in 5 or 6 years, or 7 or 8 years. So I don't expect you guys to really be part of the project management office PMO processes. A business sponsor. The project sponsor is the executive who manages, administers, monitors, funds, and is responsible for the overall project delivery. Now, typically, remember, IT is needed to supplement the business. So there is a business process that the business people have been doing or they have conceived a business process that they plan to do. IT is only going to supplement that, only going to help them do it better. So there will always be a business person from the business side of the world. In this context, there'll be some person within the sales team, service team, or marketing team, or manufacturing team. All these represent the business operations, remember? So out of these people, there will be one person who will be entrusted with getting the correct system, the the best system possible so that these people can function well. That's the essentially the intent of any IT project. These guys are doing their business. They have been doing it for a long time. They will continue to do it even after there is no IT. They were doing the business even before there was IT. So now that there is IT, they want to utilize IT team, IT people, IT information technology to get their work done faster. All these green people need to do their work faster. So they give out of them, they give someone the business sponsor some money and say that, well, you know what, why don't you get the system for us? Okay, and he is the one who kind of funds the project. He identifies the SMEs who would give the requirements to the BA. He also does other things that we just mentioned. He manages, administers. He doesn't really manage the project. The project manager manages it. But really, to me, what I have seen those guys doing is once in a while they'll come and talk to project manager. They will definitely be part of the PMO meetings. They will definitely be part of some critical meetings like change request planning or scope planning. Let's say there is a major scope creep, they would be coming in. If during requirement gathering there is an issue, business sponsors sometimes come in and kind of dictates the terms to get the ball rolling, to get the things moving. Many a time, let's say there are 5 user groups, and we are obviously doing one project, and the 5 user groups can't agree to what the requirement should be. The business sponsor or the stakeholders or or the champions can come in and say, well, this is not what we want, this is what we want, and they'll just might they might just kind of dictate what needs to be done. So I've seen that happening many a time. They monitor, yes, they monitor. They need to monitor whether the project is being delivered. Overall delivery of the project is what their whole responsibility is. They manage the funds. Yes, every project is all about there's money involved. There is, and the project has to be delivered, and that money, how much money is needed for a project. There's a proper cycle for that. They conceive the project, they identify how much funds would be needed, then they request for the funds from people higher up there, from their bosses. When they get the funds, only then they start the project, right? So they basically kind of keep looking at, they keep controlling and manage the project. Now, how much do you need to worry about this? I would say none. Don't worry about business sponsors and project sponsors. In your project, who is funding? Sometimes it may not even be clear to you. How did you get the funding? You may not even be knowing that. Would you be requesting funds? Answer is a big no. Will you be working with project sponsor to monitor the funds? Answer is a big no. Especially in the projects where you will be going, you will not be doing any of these things or even be assisting business sponsor. Project manager would be assisting business sponsor, and he won't take you to those meetings. I'm kind of very confident about it. Till you become a senior business analyst, you would not see playing you would not see yourself playing any role about this thing. So remember, a very important context: how much of it do you need? Answer is really nothing. If you know what business sponsor is, if you know what champion is, if you know what stakeholder is, then you're good. Okay? This is extremely important from interview standpoint though, because when you're articulating your answers, you need to talk about business sponsors, you need to talk about stakeholders, and you need to talk about champions, because that is the money that has been kind of put forward, and you're kind of managing the scope, and you're managing the work. You are the one who's kind of actually delivering the quality product with the help of PM. So you need to articulate your answers around it. But definitely when you're working, you will not may not you may not even know who the person is spending money. Actually, you will be interacting with PMs, and you'll be interacting with SMEs, and that would be your kind of day in and day out duty. You'll gather the requirements, pass it by the developers, have a discussion with them, identify the impacts and dependencies, and document the requirements, get the sign off from the SMEs, and move forward. Now, stakeholder, customer, or business. A stakeholder is any person or institution who has a controlling influence in the program, benefits in some way from the program, has an interest in the process and or outcome of the program, has resources invested in the program, or has other programs that may depend on the effectiveness of the language program. So, to me, definition of stakeholder, sounds like someone who's very different from business sponsors, stuff like that. But typically in a project, the people who are spending the money are called as stakeholders. I mean, it is a direct derivation of the English word stakeholder, and that's what it is. They really are the people who have the stake in it, and they want to make sure that everything goes right. So typically, any IT project, most IT projects would not be just funded by one single business group. They could be funded by multiple subgroups, or multiple people would be there. They would all be called as stakeholders. So they are also called as customer. Okay, don't get confused. In a business, in Amazon.com, there are customers who come to their website and order the products. That's not what we are talking about. In Amazon.com, there are different divisions. For example, cell phone is one division. Okay, for example, these are different divisions. Okay, these are different. They could be, all these could be different departments within the company. And if they are different departments, they might have different heads. So let's say a revamping of the website is needed. Then, and let's say it impacts cell phones and clothing accessory and collectible and fine art departments. So then 3 of them would be pooling money in the project. You don't have to worry how the money was pooled. I've been working in IT for 15 years. I never was part of that because I'm not a permanent employee, first of all. Second thing, even if I am, I have to be high up there in these decisions. These are key decisions. Okay, I don't see that this thing happening. I don't see you guys participating in project sponsorship decisions anytime soon. Okay, so remember, all those people who are the department heads for you as a business analyst are called as customers. Remember that part. That's really important. Many of my candidates, they think that the customer gives the requirement. So they think that BA gathers the requirement from the customer. No, that's not true. Customer, in this context is stakeholder. Okay, remember this part. This is a very critical part. I mean, I want to make sure you guys get the context right, because I want to be able to use the verbiage interchangeably. Okay, this thing will really impact your ability to conduct at the project. Here, if you don't know what the various verbiages are, what the various words, terms are for a certain role or for a certain thing, then you will face issue. Okay, this is part of my general understanding that I want you to develop. I have seen people would go through the entire course, would not understand that the stakeholder is sometimes also called as customer, and that doesn't mean that he is the customer. This is not what he means. Okay, within this group, look, BA is getting these SMEs. They are spending money and giving to the IT people, right? So these people are kind of suppliers within just this group. This guy is the customer. The SME is the customer. Stakeholder is the customer. He's buying from you, BA and PM, something, and you guys have promised to deliver the goods. Okay, so within this context, sometimes the stakeholders or SMEs are called as customer. Okay, remember this part. Don't forget, this is really important. Okay, so there are multiple things that we need to understand here. They would they have a thorough, like they would be having multiple ways of identifying, what's the right project, whether the project is going smoothly, whether the project is accomplishing its goal, whether it's on the right track, whether it's meeting the milestones and things like that. All that is very important, but it won't hit you anytime soon. You would know that these are the deadlines for gathering requirements, these are the timelines, and you would, it kind of comes very naturally for you to stay within those. When the development is starting, when the testing is starting, when the testing is supposed to end, and all these things kind of very, they really don't really affect that much, impact you that much. Remember, when you are when you are here when you are here, you're kind of, these are small simple things that you would be able to understand. There's a lot of philosophy behind this, how the milestones are derived, how those are laid out, how, what kind of money should be spent, what kind of resources we should have. But you need to understand this. You will not be directly or indirectly participating in those decision making. You'll be participating in very indirect fashion, like you would be kind of coming out with the requirements and high level scope. We'll discuss that down the line, and identifying what needs to be delivered, okay, in the sense that what all can be delivered and what kind of issues could come down the line from software and IT system standpoint. That's what you really do. All right, I'm giving you a buzzword related to this thing: cost benefit analysis. Okay, stakeholder, with the help of senior BAs, you would not be working as senior BA probably, you'll be working as regular BA, does something called as cost benefit analysis. This buzzword is really important from clearing the interview standpoint. You must get in the habit of using this in your language. There is something called as cost benefit analysis, which means that they will identify how much a certain project's gonna cost them, IT project's gonna cost them, and what benefit will they get. For example, in an iPhone, if you realize, okay, if you have an ability to use a USB kind of stick, just as you in a laptop, right? iPhones don't allow you to use that, right? They have inbuilt hard disk, and you can't really control that. You can't. So, but let's say there is a way, you realize that that feature is available to you for an extra $100, so that you can use any USB that you want. Would you want to go for it? Okay, that whole decision making process sounds simple to you guys. You guys take such decisions every day. When you guys buy a laptop, you do a cost benefit analysis for every feature of the laptop. You guys do that every day. That's exactly what it is at a high level. From a general understanding standpoint, it is that's what it is. You all take the decision. When you guys are buying a house, you guys are thinking, what will be the cost and what will the benefit. If for the same price you're getting extra bedrooms, you might go for it. If for the same price you're not getting extra, you may not go for it. But then you also consider the maintenance cost. So remember, you have been doing this. It won't really be too difficult for you to understand what's going on. Now, for an IT project, doing the cost benefit analysis is very difficult. It's not that easy. Stakeholders know that really well. Would you be doing that though? Answer is no. I'm very sure about it. You won't be doing that for quite some time in your career. You would not be doing any cost benefit analysis. But it's a very good interview line that I assisted my project manager in cost benefit analysis, and make sure you understand what this line is about and be able to speak about cost. You don't have to say how you did cost benefit analysis, but you definitely should say that you assisted and what kind of work did you do. What you do is you identify, because you are a BA, you know what the system is supposed to do, so you can identify the cost because you know the requirements, you know what kind of system would be needed, you know how many people would be needed to implement a certain functionality in the system. So you are the one who will provide the cost. Benefit is something that they already have envisioned, and you will make sure that everything that you're delivering is aligned with that benefit. if you think they'll get a little less benefit than what they expected, then you would need to tell them. Remember, not you, I'm sorry, PM would tell them. You as a senior BA would be kind of assisting PM heavily. In the first few years of your career, I don't see you guys doing this kind of work very heavily. If you can gather the requirements and give it to the developer, that's exactly what will serve that, help serve the day. So just to let you know, I talked about cost benefit analysis, the main concept, and I talked from day-to-day life standpoint. Okay, that cost benefit analysis that you do when you buy a new laptop. Okay, there are laptops for $500, then there are laptops for 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, up to 5 grand. There are more laptops even more expensive than that. So you do that analysis every day. What features you want, why you want, and how much money are you ready to spend for a certain feature. And you do that analysis and take decisions. That's exactly what cost benefit. How much should the cost be for getting a certain benefit? So you do this analysis, how much you're ready to spend if you want a certain benefit, or to get this benefit, how much would the cost be? That kind of decides multiple things here. So that is what I gave you a few minutes ago. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. None of these things are important, but from business function context, from this context standpoint, every time they would be identifying the benefits, when you gather the requirements, you will give them the cost. This is how much it will cost. You tell them to implement a system for those requirements. This is how much it will cost. When you give the cost, you don't give a dollar amount, you give a level of, you give a per hour, you give a total number of man hours as the cost. You say, well, to develop this feature, I would utilize 20 man hours, or it would need 20 man hours to develop it, 10 man hours to test it, and so on and so forth, and 5 man hours to analyze it. Of course, analysis is not free. Someone has to sit on at the desk and do this and send emails around and find out what can be done and what should not be done, and that's how the analysis is complete before it goes to development. So that has to be paid too. There's a cost for that, and the cost is measured in number of hours, number of man hours. Okay, now you would be wondering at this point, how would you do the number of man hour analysis? Okay, PM will be the one who would be extremely diligently watching what kind of hours we should be giving. I can give you one example from my life. I gave my estimate to my PM. He simply multiplied it by 2 and gave it to the PMO. He didn't even look what I wrote. He said, oh, how much total? 200 hours? Oh, that's too less. Can you make it 350 or 400? I said, I don't know, it's gonna cost. He said, okay, you know what, we don't have time, just multiply it by 2. Let's just put it in front of the PMO. All right, so you can see how it goes in the real life. All right, so there are some very basic techniques that you need to know when you are working with any kind of system. So that's how I came out with that 200 man hour number 2, right? So how to do that, that is kind of a science. It depends on system to system, functionality to functionality. Somehow in the first few years, in the first few 1 year of your career at least, I don't see you guys doing cost benefit analysis. And once you guys get to a point where you guys are supposed to do cost benefit analysis, it is a set of techniques though, but you will, every company does it differently. Let's say you're working for HP, or you're working for Intel, or you're working for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, or you're working for Novartis. They would be having those techniques. Those will be visible to you, and you would be able to get a good command and good help from your peers to be able to do that. I don't think you need to worry about cost benefit analysis or coming out with the man hour number for the system functionalities. You don't need to really worry at this point. Okay, you don't need to worry about at this point. If you're gonna be working on that, it's not gonna be that you have to give the estimates now. They'll give you ample time, like 10 days to submit the budget. Okay, it's not really like 10 minutes or 10 hours, 10 days to submit the level of effort or in terms of man hours. So you'll get enough time, and your PM will be sitting and watching, we will be very interested in what man hours do you submit. So remember, okay, it's not, you're definitely not gonna be alone. So your project mates would definitely help you in that. So I don't see that as an issue. At the time of interview, they never get into the details of cost benefit or number of man hours formula. So you don't have to worry about even for the interview. Remember, if interview is your biggest issue, even if they don't ask in the interview, you don't need to worry about it too much. You can easily sail through this process without really knowing the nitty gritty of the cost benefit analysis and coming out with the dollar man hour number for any functionality. It depends on the system anyway. So let's say you're going to be working in the system, the systems and processes, the project docs will tell you. So when these are really heavily project dependent things. It's not that if a certain feature is needed, everywhere it will cost the same. So it will be different everywhere. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. So we'll talk about who the project manager is. In any IT project, there will be a project manager. If you know any friend, he'll always talk about his manager. That's exactly what he's talking. He's talking about the project manager. If he's part of some IT project. Okay. Now, IT project managers. So when PMO conceives new IT projects, they will supplant a project manager. They'll first hire the PM, project manager, who would then hire various other people, BAs, development leads, developers, test leads, testers, etc., to do the project. The project manager manages the project. What does he manage? Okay, he manages the resources needed for the project. He manages the cost, the money that has been given to him by the people higher up, the stakeholders. So he manages that budget. And some of the planning activities that they do is they come out with the milestones. They come out with the resources that are needed for a certain thing, for a certain project. They come out with all the tasks that need to be completed. That's the planning part. Remember tasks. Remember the resources. Remember the scope that needs to be done. They kind of help in scope planning also. Then they help in execution. On a day-to-day basis, they would have meetings with the TAC leads, the BAs leads and BAs and test leads and testers to see whether what they're doing. That's execution. When on the floor, when it's going on, they are there seeing, checking out everything is going on fine. And closing of any project. Yes, exiting a project is also a big science. They will be they will definitely be part of that and making sure that the project is delivered properly. Okay, I'm not going to be worrying about the construction industry, architecture, computer networking, telecoms. Okay, so I would just worry about a software development. Project managers also charge the progress and performance of the project on behalf of the project owner. Okay, so project managers will definitely be kind of doing all this work. Remember, the planning and execution both is what they do, not just planning and not just execution. Okay, you can read this. Okay, remember personalization. I talked about personalization, administration, configuration, customization, and heavy customization. So remember, this is a very important tool in level of effort estimation in terms of man hours. Okay, if something, let's say it's an IT project where an out of the box solution is going to be utilized. If that's the case, so out of the box means pre-packaged software. For example, Facets is one such software. Okay, for example, you can look at any, like salesforce.com is one such, like out of the box solution. So if some change, some requirement would need just administration work, this green one here, then that would mean that it doesn't need too much work to be done. So development effort will be very less. Okay, same for configuration and similarly for customization. So you would see, how much of the work would be done by basic configuration, by just changing the options a little bit here and there, if the thing can be done. If you don't understand this context, we need to talk about it. But this context is a very important tool for analyzing what kind of man hours would be involved for certain kind of projects only. I'm talking about transactional systems mostly, okay? I'm talking about transactional systems mostly. Somehow I feel that you guys will be really working in a transactional system. Claims management system is a transactional system. Okay, if you work in an e-commerce, somehow I expect that you would be working on like the transactional side of the e-commerce, like placing orders and things like that. Okay, I don't see you guys working firmwares, really. I don't see that, but if that were to happen, that's okay. Okay, I don't. MDM projects are really difficult. Engineering systems would not hire anybody that easily. They're kind of very finicky about hiring. MIS, transactional systems, are what you're going to be working on, and those projects, a level of effort estimation is typically done by this key that I just explained you. This one. Okay. So here's a very nice way to look at what a business analyst does. He studies the overall business and information needs of an organization in order to develop solutions to business and related technology problems. Oh God. So it is an internal consultancy role. It's a liaison between technology staff and management. It says management. So basically what I'm trying to say is all these definitions are from Google. So I'm just trying to make sure you guys get the definitions as well. But technology staff and SMEs, okay, they are typically the liaison between them. Okay, it is an internal consultancy role that has the responsibility for investigating business systems, identifying options for improving business systems, and bridging the gap needs of the business with the use of IT. This particular line really captures the essence of what a business analyst does as far as analysis portion is concerned. He actually looks at the different kind of systems that are out there and within the company, and looks at, for an, let's say they want to change some sales system or billing system. Now billing system has sales systems dependencies. Billing system has dependencies on the engineering systems. Billing systems have dependence on the asset management systems, not listed here because I cannot list really all types of list systems. Forget listing those all kinds of systems here. So billing system has like overlaps with so many other systems, and so a typical business analyst is supposed to understand what kind of systems would be impacted for a certain requirement and then analyze those impacts and then come out with the man hours. Hey, did I tell you some key so far? Remember, there are downstream systems and then there are upstream systems to any system. Okay, the interfaces to those systems is what we are talking about here. And then there are two types of interfaces, real-time and batch. There's a full tutorial on that. I've given you a full tutorial on that. So if you understand real-time and batch interfaces, if you know the functionality, remember the Simba diagram. Okay, remember these diagrams, the number of validations that should take place. Okay, in the GUI, the programming logic that needs to be developed. I will give you multiple examples with which you can understand what the business logic is. Any kind of access rights tweaking needs to be done. Remember, this is the most critical piece. Any real-time integration is needed than that. If some kind of lookup is needed, remember that's a very important context, very important thing. If, for example, they want to process the claims, I will give you a simple example. And they say that if the provider number is wrong, then the claim should be rejected. Just a simple example. That system, claim management system, has to have an interface with the system which has the list of all the providers. When the claim comes in, it has to perform a lookup on that system, provider management system, where all the providers data is available, and then see if the number is a valid number and is one of the numbers listed there, and then throw the error on the basis of that, or obviously accept the claim if it is all right. You see, how systems interactions would really come as part of your analysis of any requirement. So when you see any requirement, I'm gonna, we are gonna be discussing sometime, during this course, many requirements and their functionalities that you would need and what kind of setup you need in this context. What kind of setup you need in the business logic layer, and what kind of setup you need in the database layer. I'm not going to talk about the tables and all, just the lookup table and the basic tables, main tables. I'm going to talk about the interfaces that you would need, the validations that you need in the GUI. All this will give you a very good idea about level of effort or the man hours that you would need for your work, for cost benefit analysis and stuff. And actually that helps you in analysis also. Okay, there are so many analysis points, and those analysis points directly determine what needs to be done. Here is one more thing. I'm going to help you define the Simba diagrams for various functionalities. Okay, this is a very simple Simba diagram for a scanner. Okay, just so that everybody can understand. So that's how I start my Simba diagram discussion. I'll explain various Simba diagrams for various functionalities. So there are many other players in this whole game. If you remember one of your contexts, there are people like developers. Okay, there are testers, and we do remember the SDLC. So we do know that different phases are executed by different people primarily. Red one is business analysis here. Green one is developers do it. Yeah, blue ones are done by the testers. Okay. Now, in an IT team, these are the primary roles, and but there could be some other roles that could be needed. For example, there could be architects, technical architects. So what I've seen is there is always either a part-time or a full-time technical architect on the team who determines what technical infrastructure would be needed for he would need, like, what technicalities of the system. For example, whether that will be a SOA based, whether that will be web service based, how will, let's say there is a real-time interface, how it will go. You as a BA will simply say it should be a real-time interface or a batch interface. You won't be able to say anything more than that. How would they send the data in a real-time fashion from one system to another is their headache. How is their headache? What needs to be done is your headache. You would talk to the SMEs and determine what needs to be done. Okay, you would talk to the SMEs, these SMEs, then they'll tell you they need a real-time interface. You as a liaison, don't just accept it. You are not a writer, a documentation expert. You are not a typist. You are an analyst. You are an analyst. So you analyze and advise the SME on what the options are and why he should not go for a real-time interface. Just at a high level, I've already told a few times, any real-time interface is a very expensive thing to happen. Any batch interface is a cheaper thing. No interface is a welcome thing. But if you need an interface, then that would be needed, of course. Okay, so remember, SMEs would want the world. You as a BA have to restrict them to wanting a smaller world. Okay, they would want everything. And you as a BA, developer is not tasked with these things. They don't tell SME what not to be done. BAs have to do that. So you analyze and identify high cost items like real-time interfaces and stuff, and try to bargain, actually in the real sense of the word, negotiate with the SME that if he gets this particular interface, then it won't be too much beneficial to him and things like that. You don't do the cost benefit analysis the way stakeholders do, but it's your day-to-day duty to tell them, that they should go for these options. So you kind of identify the technical feasibility of any requirement, you identify the systemic level impacts, then you try to reduce the requirements so that the development effort is the least. Okay, now that's not the only goal. You have to make sure that you're delivering a quality system and also a very good user friendly and usable system. So you can't really compromise on the delivery, on the product quality also. But the point is that you are the one who kind of manages all those things. That is your day in and day out duty. You act as a liaison between stakeholders and developers. Think like this: if you are not their stakeholder, will be always fighting with developer, and developer will be always telling stakeholder what this is not the thing that you need. So you need to play developer in front of SME and SME in front of developer. Developer will ask you, why does the business need it, why the SME needs this requirement, and you have to advocate why he needs. You have to know all the business reasons, all the things, and you have to explain to the tech lead. And SMEs will ask why you can't do something. I'm asking for this thing, why you can't do it? Then BA will explain why it is not technically possible or technically beneficial. Possible means impossible, and beneficial means something like some intricate system, intricate interface is needed, or some intricate function changes are needed in the system to be able to deliver something. Then you deliver that message to SME. Remember, you don't work as a messenger. They ask you the reason. And when they do ask the reason, you have to articulate. And that's why I tell you, if you don't have good communication, you won't be able to do really well as a BA. But if you do have good communication, it is really about walking the walk and talking the talk. You should be able to do it. There is really not much. You are simply just representing developer in front of SME. And remember, in front of developer, that's not a very big challenge. Quite frankly, developers really become very good friends of yours, and they kind of, become pally pally. And after that, it's all hunky dory. It won't be too big of a deal to deal with the developer. He will guide you. He will tell you what he can't do and why he can't do. You need to understand that and not explain in technical terms to SME, but in business terms to SME. So that is your key challenge. Whatever you learn from technical standpoint should be translated in a business language that the SME can understand, and then explain it to him in that manner. That is your key challenge. So an architect is a kind of a technical, there are two kinds of architects. There are business architects, then there are technical architects. I do see some technical architects on the team, maybe on a part-time basis, and I do see some business architects on the team too. Really, you don't need to worry about that. You won't be working, it will be very easy to understand. They'll simply tell you we need business architect might mean that we need some integration with the data warehouse, or with let's say an MDM system, master data management system. How this thing should happen is the headache of technical architect. Why and what it needs to happen is the headache of business architect. You will be interacting with both a lot, with business architect a lot, and it will make perfect sense to you because it's all business language discussion. For example, like I gave you an example of why you need to interact with the provider database to be able to process the claim. Designer. So there are usually designers on the team, like who understand the look and feel kind of concepts about a project. Typically in a web customer facing application, like a website, Amazon.com website, there would definitely be extremely talented designers, and they would know exactly how the interface should look like. Okay, and he will be having like understanding of visual designs, web standards and things like that. And yes, you can work as a designer also down the line. Well, even now it's not a big deal, but I would say, and I mean, the designer is also pretty much like a BA in one way, because he kind of talks to the business and understands their requirements and kind of writes in a Word doc or writes in some kind of visual tool how the thing will look like. He will not code. Remember, designer doesn't code. That's not what we are talking about here. He simply designs. Okay. Software developer, a person in a team who will develop the product. We know what a developer does. He is the one who actually does the work. I mean, he actually does the coding. Deployment. So deployment, or the SCM guru, or the software change management person, is the person who kind of makes sure that the code, the tested and done and developed and the tested, very well tested code, and all the related files are deployed in the environment so that users can start accessing it. So using it access the system. So that is the deployment. Okay, I have written multiple roles here. You need to think to yourself what those various roles are. If you don't understand, that's a very important thing. That's kind of a problem. You need to understand, at least develop a general understanding of what we are talking about. Okay. In this diagram, I'm trying to explain that the clients and contacts are outside the company. I don't want anybody to get confused here. You know, if you're working for a claims management company, let's say an insurance company, then the providers, the doctors are your kind of clients or something. They are not the ones who will use the system. Okay, so if you're working for Blue Cross Blue Shield, then they are not your, the clients and contacts are not the one. Let's say it's a claim management system for Blue Cross Blue Shield, so they are your, like, they are outside. They don't have anything to do with the system. The claims representatives are the one who use the system. Their supervisors, their VPs, their directors are the ones who are kind of, you know, want to make sure that the claims are processed properly. So they use the system. Stakeholders or SMEs, you understand these things. You don't understand app admin and server admin. Server administration means, from a client server perspective, you know, it's a program at the end of the day. When 1,000 claims representatives are accessing, or 1,000 sales representatives are accessing the sales system, then the way messaging works. So there are some, this is a technical role. They kind of make sure that the requests are processed from all these clients and in a performance enhanced manner and responded back to. So that is the whole idea. So server administration is a very technical role. You don't have to worry about it. App admin is on the other hand is a very is actually something that you might even have to do sometimes. App administrators are the ones, application administrators are the ones who administer the application. Well, what they do is, okay, remember in SDLC, okay, the whole SDLC is complete. The thing is already ready, is being used by the users. The system is already being used by the users. Let's say after 1 year of the entire project is delivered and everything is done, some new user comes in. He has to be set up in the system, right? Okay, don't think the system is going to be like a Facebook system where the user can create his user ID password. Typically, the IT systems in the companies won't be having that capability. Okay, so app admin is the one who would, application admin is the one who would be needed. In addition to the user ID and an initial password setup, the user would also need to see certain data. So manager of the user, sales reps, manager, supervisor will tell the app admin, hey, he needs to be set up like this. He should see the sales data. He should not see the service data. He should not see all the clients. He should see clients only in his own territory. Things like that. So the app admin will, you know, would set the user up in the same fashion. Okay. Sometimes people ask me, you know, when the project gets over, what does a BA do? Well, that's what he does sometimes. That is one of the duties that you might be given, and in between projects. So let's say a new project is conceived, and before that new project, there is some time you might be doing these kind of things. Basic application maintenance work. Okay. These below this line, They are the general purpose people. I mentioned software change management. Network administrators are also general purpose. So let's say there are multiple projects going on. One is a SAP project, one is a Siebel project, the other one, third one is a SOA project, fourth one is your claims project, things like that. Sixth one is a Salesforce project. They all will be having separate IT teams. We understand that part. Their project manager would be different, their BAs would be different, their developers would be different, right? We understand that part. But let's say the network doesn't work properly. Some problem is occurring in the Siebel application because of the network. Then network administrator would come in and fix it, not the developer of Siebel. Okay. So in that case, what I'm trying to say is that network administrator will be common to all the projects. So that is typically a separate team altogether, which kind of administers the entire network. Similarly, database or Oracle administrator, that is a very horizontal skill. Okay, when Oracle doesn't work properly, the performance is not good. They will come in and kind of fine tune it. Okay, system hardware admin. If the laptop doesn't work, SAP people need laptops. Siebel team would need laptops. Oracle applications team would need that. These are all different IT projects. I'm trying to represent different IT projects with this thing. They would need laptops. So if the laptop doesn't work or when they need a new laptop, they will request it from the system hardware administration team. If the laptop doesn't work, they will come and give the new laptop. And similarly, if the server machine needs more hard disk or it's broken, then they are the ones who will come and fix it. This server administrator does not work on the machine. He's a champion. He's a person who kind of does the software part of the thing. So if there is a SAP implementation, their SAP server, how it works and things like that is what the SAP server administrator would know. And if it is a Siebel project, then Siebel server person would know. SAP server would not be able to figure that out. So it's a vertical skill. It is related to that IT team. So a person who understands the way the server works of a certain project is always needed. They are some of the other roles that a typical IT project hits. Compliance team. A claims management system comes under compliance. There are certain rules of the government which have to be followed. For example, the claim information should not reveal the patient information to the claim person. It is a government rule. It is not rule for the BCBS. It's rule for every small or big or medium sized company in this country. So there are many such rules. For example, when doctor signs on a piece, let's about my medical representatives, they meet with the doctors and then they give the medicines, and then they kind of obtain the signature on a piece of paper saying that the doctor received those medicines, right? So that paper comes under compliance. That paper cannot be lost by the pharmaceutical company, by the drug manufacturer company, the pharmaceutical company, for many years. I don't know the days. You can check it out. Remember, this is definitely something that is a part of the business discussion. If you cannot go deep into how many days and all that, you can do Googling and you can find it out. But I wanted to make sure you understand what the compliance team is and how it hits the BA. Remember, every functionality that you design comes under compliance. You have to think about compliance at least once. This is one of your important analysis points. So this is one of the most important analysis points. Compliance or legal. You do talk to compliance team and make sure it is compliant with the government regulations. Okay, that's what the compliance team manages for every project. There will be typically a compliance team in a company, and they would be very concerned about ensuring that, especially in a pharmaceutical company, not in every company, I take it back, in pharmaceutical companies, and they'll be making sure that every system, every functionality, everything is compliant, every deliverable is compliant with the compliance regulatory requirements of the government. Okay, Abbott Labs in the year 2001 was fined about $250 million for not maintaining the documentation for the IT projects, not for pharmaceutical projects, non-IT projects, for IT projects. So remember, if they kind of screw up in the pharmaceutical development process, okay, you'll be surprised how much compliance, how much role a compliance department plays, or how much role government regulations play in every IT project. You'll be surprised at that. I'll give you an example of the compliance, how compliance matters. So FDA is a government agency, Food and Drug Administration, which makes sure that each and every drug that is manufactured, okay, is distributed properly. Okay, it is manufactured and distributed properly. For example, they don't want the drugs to be sold through illegal channels. They want the drugs to be sold through pharmacies only. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about manufacturing. I don't want to open the entire box of wounds, but little by little I'll tell you. So now distribution. So they want to, so every company has a process for distributing the drugs, right? One of the key things is, I'm going to talk about that the medical representative will give the doctor uh, the medicines and take the signature, right? So if you're making a system where the total number of drugs is capped, where the drugs is capped, that is in a system, right? They will enter that we give 5 drugs, 5 medicines, or 5 medicines boxes to the physician or the doctor, and now out of 20 that I already had, 15 are left, something like that. They will maintain in the system. So we know that the process of giving the medicine comes under FDA, Food and Drug Administration. It's not IT administration, it's Food and Drug Administration. But because you're using a system to track the distribution, that system also comes under FDA regulations. FDA has special guidelines for those systems as well. If you want to distribute the drugs or medicines using systems, IT systems, then you should make those in this way. You will be surprised what FDA has. FDA has special guidelines for manufacturing of those systems as well. How can you say they are working in a certain way? How can you say they are working in a certain way? How can you say that? So that means the manufacturing of that system also have to be done in a certain fashion to prove that it is working in such a way that drugs will be distributed properly using this system. For example, if in the system there is a way to update the quantity later, what he gave to the doctor, then that is a very bad system, right? Then medical representative can tweak the system later on whatever he wants, right? He can himself change the things in the system. It's kind of simple science. So how can Abbott Lab say that the system that they're using doesn't have the capability to allow the rep to change the number of medicines that he gave to the doctor? How can Abbott Lab say? So they have to prove that when the system was being developed as part of SDLC, some of the things were some requirements were specially there to make sure that it does not allow the rep to change. Then there is a special process called validation that we check the system. So Abbott Labs has to check the system to prove that those things were taken care of. So there is so for testing those systems, who knows the tester is also mingling with the distributor, the medical representative, and the developer. So that how you chose the tester for testing the system is also under compliance. The way of choosing that validation expert is also under compliance. It has to be from a third party, by the way. Okay? Then validation of the system is under compliance. Oh God, what all is under compliance? You'll be surprised. Not just the drug. The system that is used, the system that you are having, how did you manufacture is under, how did you develop that system is also under compliance. And then the resources that you got for that system, the testers and the validation experts, is also under compliance. The process of selecting those validation people. Oh man. Compliance is big in this country. All healthcare comes under compliance. Pharmaceutical comes under compliance. All food distribution comes under compliance. Oh man. So many things come under compliance. Transportation come under compliance. Transportation of food. In this country, you have to prove, if you are a transportation company, that the trucks that you're using will not corrode the quality of the food if the food is put in it, is transported in it. Okay, so hold your breath. There's a lot to learn in this world. But remember, you don't really need to know these things too well, because my most important context is this one. When you will work, you will not work on all these things. You're not going to be made this kind of discussion will be really appropriate for CEOs, CEOs, and CIOs. So you will not be working on one simple functionality or one simple feature or one simple area of requirements, and you'll be just working on that. You don't have to worry about anything else. Okay? So, and your project mates would help you. You need to just go through this process from submission to this assigned work. Rest everything, then it will be fine for you. Okay, so I was talking about roles. Then legal team is the one which takes care of the law. There are some legal requirements also. Sometimes compliance is roughly legal is roughly compliance, but still sometimes, from legal standpoint, I've seen, some law. There is always a corporate lawyer team. They also have they have also some say in the systems that certain things are illegal to have. For example, I mean, all compliance thing is illegal, but for example, let's say there is a merger of two companies, HP and Compaq. We know that there was a merger of HP and Compaq a few years ago. So then certain things come under law. Like for example, just, I don't know, incentives of the sales rep should be calculated in this manner. Something like that. Just roughly, some things come under law. For example, perfect example, that's not compliance though. That's again, law says that if a person has been contacted, okay, well, law says before a person has to be contacted, you should check whether his name is available, is there in the do not call list. So if you want to cold call a person, you must make sure that he's not there in the do not call list, and that is the law. So legal team has. So what I've seen is in the projects, legal team has you have less interaction with the legal team. Compliance is something big. It depends on the project. It depends on the industry. If you're in pharmaceutical or healthcare, compliance will be big. Mid-level and high-level managers are here. They kind of are related to these various, they're part of the hierarchy here. Users, all these people are called as users. The business people are the business people are called as business in our language. Process owners, somewhere here, there is a process owner. He needs to make sure that the sales reps and marketing reps are following the process and increasing the sales and doing the sales. Now, process owners are the ones who are the first ones to envision a system that will make the process faster. They do the cost benefit analysis. They see what benefits will the process get if a certain IT project is conceived at a certain cost. They are the first one to request an IT project. They are part of the business team, and they are the typical people who are in the stakeholder team and in the PMO office. Okay, integration expert, a very technical role. It should go here. Batch experts and integration experts go here. A typical integration expert, like typically every team will have their own integration expert. Bad job expert, typically that will be part of the IT team. It's not a generic skill. It will be here as part of a specific IT team. Data administrator, I'll talk about the customer. Customer in the business sense goes here because they are part of the, like as I said, sometimes BAs, SMEs are called as customers to us. Okay. Then data admin. Data admin is a person who kind of is part of this team here. Power use, this is like a power user. He can administer the data. He understands how the data, like for example, let's say one sales rep says he doesn't see his leads. He entered it yesterday, everything went fine, and then he saved it, and now he doesn't see it. Then this issue can come at any time, even when the IT team is already gone and as DLC is complete and the system has already been delivered. So this data administrator can look at the data and fix the data. It could be some flag or it could be something missing on the sales rep side. So they can fix the data and then sales rep will be able to see his. So that's what the data administrator does. He can look, they usually administer, so they can see all kinds of data, typical requirement will be sales rep should not be able to see like certain kinds of data, but data administrators would be able to see. They will be like power users and they'll be able to see more data. So we discussed various roles. Quality assurance, tester, the inspection, testing, and other relevant actions taken. So this is a very critical role. We understand that many of you might be working as quality assurance experts. Quality assurance simply means whatever BA has said, this is the function as the needed functionality in the system. Obviously has been coded by developers. Tester will test that the thing that developer coded is exactly same as what business analyst wanted. He will go through the document prepared by business analyst, which he gave to the developer to develop the system. That same document will be taken by the tester, and he will write his test cases and make sure he will look at the developed code and see if everything is working as per the needs, as per the requirements mentioned in the document. There is less of an analysis that the QA guy needs to do. He doesn't do much analysis. He simply looks at the document. Okay, he doesn't ask why a certain functionality is needed. He simply just looks at the functionality and writes test cases. He needs to do analysis of how many different ways the things can go wrong. Sometimes what I've seen is, QA people are smarter than the BA. They know exactly what all other things that should have been taken care of while gathering the requirement, right? So they will take care of. But QA basically is testing discipline. They test what was needed. Okay, they test whether the developer has done a good job. They find the bugs. I can explain the discipline of testing in a really simple fashion. Let's say the project is not an IT project. The project is to construct a house which has 4 bedrooms. BA is the one who has originally decided by talking to the future owners of the house what they need, and BA decided okay, they would need 4 bedrooms. All the architect, the mazdur, the labor must have made the entire house in 6-7 months. Now the tester will come in and just see whether the rooms are 4 or 3 or 5. That's what tester is. He simply just checks according to the specifications if the things have been made by the person, by the developer, by the person who is supposed to make it, like the labor and the architect. So testing in case of house is looks like a simple thing. Actually, testing can be very strenuous too. They have to check each and every bolt, nut, each and every specification, height, width. Let's say there are specifications around how much lighting should come in. So they will check all these things before they would ask the owners to have a look at it. Okay, owners to, right? So that is testing. Within a house development project also, there are definitely some testers who will test whether the things are working as per the specifications. Okay, with this we come to the very important thing called as scope of the project. If in this whole presentation one thing is the most important, that I would say scope. This word scope has to be on your mouth all the time when you're taking the interview. This is something that you actually manage day in and day out. Remember I was talking about when the SME say he wants this, he wants the world, then you have to push back on the requirement. This is your day in and day out question, day in and day out duty to manage the scope. Make sure the SMEs don't ask for everything in the world. Okay, if they ask for everything in the world, you are the ones who has to push back on SME saying that you can't do this. That is what we call as scope management. What SME is trying to do, that is trying to add more requirements, is called a scope creep. And BA does a pushback. Pushback is an English word. Scope creep is an actual generic software keyword that you must get a very good command on. You should know how to use it in sentences. You should know how to talk to the interviewers when you're taking the interview. So scope management, I have worked on stocks. When you are kind of in the start of the SDLC also. Okay, the whole thing is all about Scope management, scope creation, scope definition. You kind of define the scope at the beginning of the SDLC. Then when you're doing the requirement gathering, you don't gather any requirement which is outside the scope. Okay. When you are gathering function requirements, don't do anything, don't require any, you don't gather any requirement which is outside the scope. When you are, okay, when you're doing the testing, okay, after testing, let's say out of 100 functionalities that you're supposed to deliver, 95 are working and 5 are not working. So then you talk to the stakeholders and try to scope those out. Look at the way I'm using this word. They try to scope those out, those functionalities out, those requirements out, and try to deliver the system and try to end the testing. Okay. Scoping in, it can be scoped in. These are all the regular usage of the word. This requirement should be scoped out is a very good way to say what should be scoped out and what should be kept. As part of user acceptance testing, users will try to do the scope creep, and your job is to ensure that they can't do any scope creep. Okay. When the UAT occurred, users said this is what they wanted. I showed them the original scope definition documents and the business requirement definition documents, and they looked at those and then they said, okay, yeah, this is not what they asked. They signed off on something else. Scope is a very important thing. Okay, I've written it here as a very important buzzword. Okay, time, resource, and quality are the main ideas of the scope. Okay, but this is over articulation of a simple concept. Okay, when you hear scope, something comes to your mind. Okay, what comes to your mind is typically this. What I've seen people think that this, you know, how we use the English word scope in our everyday language. We say, what is the scope for this thing? What is the scope for engineering these days? So that means like what are the various prospects? What is the prospects for scope? What kind of opportunities lie ahead if we take engineering? Now, in software world, scope is kind of very different from this. It's actually different. It's not this. It sounds like this. Scope means simply what all we will do. Scope simply means what all we will do. As part of the scope, as part of this scope of this project, what all we will work on, what will we deliver, that is the scope. Okay, so that whole thing starts like scope is simply what will we do, which process we will strengthen. Is it about claims management? Now claims management is a big process. What part of the claim management will be overhauled? Okay, scope is a really important thing. It is like when you are building a house, it's like we'll build a 3-bedroom house with 2,500 square feet, like that. That's pretty much, you know, we'll work on these bedrooms, how many bedrooms and bathrooms. You can't change it drastically. Okay, so that's scope. Scope is an extremely important thing in any project. Okay, and if you don't, so remember, as part of my context, I would say the most important thing about the scope main concept is what you confuse it with. My students, when they start to use scope word, they start to say the scope of the project as if it is a scope of becoming an engineer. This project will do these things. Well, it sounds like that, but it is actually not that. What we will deliver as part of the project is what the scope is. So basically what we will do, what we will achieve, what is not achieved, what is the boundary, what all we will achieve and what all we will not achieve as part of this project. So for example, we'll deliver a sales management system but will not work on incentives. For example, we might say we will not work on the client master data management system. We will not do anything related to that. If there is a problem in the client master data management system, then there will be the problem arising out of that will be out of scope for us. This is how we talk about the scope. Okay. How much you should learn? It is an extremely important thing from interview standpoint. It's an extremely important thing from day-to-day learning standpoint. Okay, you try to always scope out more difficult things. That is your day in and day out goal. Things which are very hard to deliver, you try to scope those out every day. That's what, in one way to look at your job is really. Why developers could simply do, if the SMEs wanted something and developers had to always give it to them, then simply you are not needed. You are needed because you need to scope in and scope out the things. You need to negotiate what needs to be delivered and what not does not need to be delivered. Okay, I gave you some in-person interview lines. Please make sure you notice those. Key differentiation from most confusing, trustworthy, help sources, other buzzwords. Yeah, scope is a really important thing. I don't know how I can make this for different kinds of projects. For e-commerce, they will, when they are working on the Amazon.com website, they will not overhaul the entire website. That will never be the scope of any project. They would be like a very smaller component that will try to overhaul, and you would be very okay. You must know the scope of the project. You will be able to easily identify that scope. Okay, typically in a scope kind of a situation, PM will be very very helpful to you. He is your actually buddy. Okay, he will help you. This is something that I see online. I don't think that's really very important for you. If you can articulate scope management discussions, you should be fine. You will not be like defining the scope. Typically in a project, it will already be there, the high level scope, and you'll be working on the low level scope. Okay, remember these buzzwords: high level scope and low level scope. Okay, sometimes the BRD is the low level scope, the business requirement document that you prepared, and after you, that is the low level scope of what you will do. Okay, in general, I'm not a big fan of wiki, but there is something that I want to talk about the scope. See, one is what we will do, and second is how much involved we will be. For example, let's say your job is to provide a good sales management system. Okay, as I said, you can talk in terms of processes and the systems and the interfaces, but then you might also say that we will not get involved in the recruitment of the resources. You see, let's say a new developer is needed, then recruiting the developer will be your responsibility. You can talk about the scope like this. Making sense? So this is like you're saying that from a project management standpoint, this is how much I will manage. Then there's product scope, like you say that these are the features that we will deliver. Okay, these are all a part of the whole scope document, and this is your responsibility, business analyst responsibility, to convey the message. Typically PM will be heavily involved in these discussions. Okay, if you are a fresher, you may not really be getting involved that much, but eventually you'll have to. When you become senior, this is one thing that you'll be doing, a lot of scope management. It is a heavy discussion. This requires heavy negotiation with the user community, with the business stakeholders, and it will require a lot of communication and articulation on your part. So do read this scope management thing. It's a pretty nice document. It's a really nice article. Just very brief. Don't go too much. Don't go over everything, cost overrun and all that. Just do this much. 6 paragraphs. Okay. So what are the goals of business analysis? One of the important goals is reduce waste. Okay, scope is what we're talking about here. Okay, we don't want to do things which are costly to do and give little benefit. So that's cost benefit analysis. And after we determine that we want to do something, we don't want to do anything outside of it. We don't want to waste the money. Okay, so that's exactly what the business analyst does. He want to make sure that it kind of helps in ensuring that there is no wastage of money and resources. Create solutions. Business analyst thinks in terms of business solutions. He knows the business reason for every system. He knows what a particular system does, and then when a new requirement comes or new business solution need comes, then he solutionizes it. He thinks about what all we can achieve, and in a creative fashion, and then create solutions, and 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 kind of that's one of the core duties. He kind of is the person who is spearheading the solutioning of the of the needs of the business. Complete projects on time. Yes, as a business analyst, you will be managing the timelines also. You would make sure that if, like for example, there are multiple things here, like let's say requirement gathering timelines are getting hit and the requirements are not frozen, then then you would work on expediting the process. If developers are not able to complete, then you will again work on change management, or you will work on scoping out certain items. If testers are not able to complete, you will do the same. You might scope out the items which are failing the testing, things like that. So there are multiple things here that you would be doing, and all the things that I'm talking as part of this slide are very good points from interview standpoint. Okay, so you can note down each and every word and speak it verbatim. Okay, improve efficiency. So you remember, the business analyst to begin with has a process which with process owner has a process, and then he hires an IT team to do this, to make this process more efficient. So business analyst as a solution provider is always ensuring that that efficiency is achieved. Okay, the things should be done in a better fashion as far as the process is concerned. Document the right requirements. Business analyst documents the requirements and gets the sign off from the business. That is really important. He gets a sign off from the users or the stakeholders or the SMEs saying that this is what I will deliver. Remember, this is probably the most important thing, because business analyst gathers the requirements and gives to the developers, right? How can I ensure that the requirement that is gathered from the SME's final? By getting the sign off, by documenting it and getting the sign off. If you ask me, first four are articulation of what he does. Last one, is the one he actually does. Okay, document the right requirements is the thing that business analyst does every day in and day out. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask.